All right. Welcome to the Executive Mansion on
Good afternoon,
live.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press. Welcome back to our weekly press briefings. And I want to again thank all of you for being very patient and being here and on time. And as you know, we started this regular press briefing here at the Executive Mansion to be able to inform the public on the workings of the Office of the President. And as always, let me say welcome to the people listening to this on the radio or via radio, or those listening on the internet, on social media and other platforms. Those in the counties who are also following this, would like to say welcome to our regular press briefing. Normally, we hold this press briefing on Fridays at 2:30 p.m. here at the Executive Mansion. As you know, the last 2 weeks, we've been very busy, and one of those were out of the country for the last 2 weeks. That's why we were unable to bring you our regular press update. So again, welcome and feel very free to participate, especially the journalists who are here this afternoon. And again, we'd like to welcome journalist Ibrahim Colley from all the way there in Kakata, Magibi, from Radio Magibi 103.9. Thank you for joining. We've tried our best to invite and include journalists who are in the counties to be a part of the regular press briefing, so they're able to translate the information to the communities. We'll try our best to be also able to reach as far as we can to make sure that Liberians in all parts of the country also know and hear the workings of the Office of the President. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I'm sure you are aware of the visit of the President out of the country for the last 2 weeks. He went to the United States of America, where he attended the U.S.-Africa Summit that was held in Dallas, Texas. And that summit brought together business leaders as well as other African presidents to talk about the issues surrounding investments in the different countries. Our president, His Excellency Joseph Yuman Boakai, was one of the presidents who were invited to the summit and attended and spoke lengthily about Liberia's progress, but more so requesting and inviting investors to come to Liberia and look for investment opportunities that are already here. But before the summit got underway, the President, His Excellency President Joseph Yuman Boakai, was as well invited to a breakfast meeting with the Millennium Challenge Corporation. As you may know, the Millennium Corporation turned a 20th year, and it was part of their celebration that they had the 20th anniversary breakfast where they invited leaders, including our president. And at that breakfast, our president had the opportunity again to make the case for Liberia and the issues relating to our country and the reasons for which, because as you know, Millennium Challenge Corporation, the first compact Liberia was a part of it. And the MCC is looking forward to as well inviting countries. So for the next 20 years, that is the second compact that they're working assiduously on. There are countries who've already qualified, and there's some point in time Liberia wasn't qualified to be able to receive that support. But the president have been able to make serious case why there is a need that the NCC reconsiders her decision to include Liberia for this second compact, which will help Liberia. And part of his engagement prior to the summit, he had a very good meeting with the head of MCC, that is called the CEO, Madam Alice Albright. And they had a tete-a-tete where he again made the case and talked about some of the issues that our country, that his government has put in place. Because to qualify for MCC, there are a number of benchmarks a country has to reach in terms of democracy, in terms of rule of law, peace and security, and a number of other things, infrastructure, but more so how the government and the people are putting in systems that are able to ensure that they meet up with the scorecards. So yes, that conversation was very fruitful, and he was very happy to, make the case again for Liberia. And part of the summit, he spoke There were a couple of different events at the summit. He attended the presidential panel, that he was one of the key speakers. He spoke also to Liberia's role, the challenges we have, where the government has come from, the challenges we've inherited, but more so as to the infrastructure development gap that is highly needed in terms of electricity, road network. He made the case that Liberia is a key member of West Africa, and the issue of cross-border trade is pertinent to our country's development. As you know, the border trade happening between Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Ivory Coast, and other neighboring countries. He made a case that road connectivity, for example, will help ease the livelihood of our people, where people can take goods and services between our borders. He made a case for electricity, he made a case for education, and his interest he pushed was that his interest is not being a politician that is just focusing on the next elections, but his focus is on the next generation. That point was loudly spoken at the opening ceremony where he was on the presidential panel. Additionally, the following day, the president was headed the Invest in Liberia discussion, where there were business leaders and a lot of different group of people who had come to talk about why it's important to invest in Liberia. The president made a case again in the key sectors that was important, particularly on agriculture. On agriculture, he did make the case on the need to ensure that local knowledge is important. You know how sometimes when people talk about agriculture investments and people who are interested, they think that there are not enough knowledge on the ground. But he re-emphasized the point that agriculture is local and that people hear the need for impact, coordination, but more so coordination between people who are on the ground and investors and investment that will come. In addition to the Invest in Liberia program, there was also a specific program that the president was heading, a panel that was on agriculture and investment in agribusiness. And part of his visit, he had line agencies who were part, for example, at the agricultural event, he had the Minister of Agriculture was part of that, and other ministers who had accompanied him to the forum. And at that again, he re-emphasized the need for investment banks, particularly banks that understand the issue of agriculture and what the goods and services in that sector and how it is important. Because if commercial banks are investing in agriculture, they may not understand the challenges within the agriculture sector in terms of produce and the management of produce, the challenges of production, the value addition. So he made a case that there is a need for people interested in the agriculture sector to be able to come and invest and also respect local knowledge. And he made mention that Liberia is rich, Liberia has the land, Liberia has the climate, but Liberia needs the resources on the scale of a larger form of investment, and not just the regular subsistence farming that our people have done over the years. So the summit was concluded with a closing ceremony, and the president, besides just the official engagement, he had a lot of other meetings. And key highlight of those meetings was he had a meeting with the UNDP team in the United States. Their intent is to also come to Liberia to see what are some of the programs they're trying to roll out and how Liberia can benefit. As you know, UNDP is a long-standing partner of Liberia for many years. Additionally, the president had a meeting with Kosovo president, and that meeting was a very important meeting. Some of the things, the challenges within Kosovo, but as well as Liberia, and how those two countries can leverage opportunities. One of the key outcome of that meeting was that the Kosovo president talked about their strength in terms of diplomatic relations and education and training opportunities, and something that she expressed interest to the president, that the president and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs can also share opportunities where some of our diplomats from Liberia can go to Kosovo to gain learning opportunities. They also talk about their strength in the search and rescue efforts, and whether or not Liberia is interested in those to be able to send some of our manpower from the fire sector and other services that they're able to. She talked about the issue of defense and what training opportunities Liberia can have. And part of the meeting was also because, as you know, Kosovo has also had a challenging time, similarly to Liberia. But some of those is to see how those relationships can be built. And as our president is a key leader within the African continent, to see how we are able to, leverage that relationship. She was very interested in leveraging the relationship between Liberia and Kosovo, but more so with President Boakai being able to provide that leadership and guidance for her. Additionally, Liberia is also contending to, contest on the non-voting member of the United Nations Security Council, despite Kosovo not being officially recognized by the United Nations. However, Kosovo is a key player within the Balkan region, so they can be a key advocate with those countries that are in the region to ensure that Liberia gets the post that she is vying for. So after that meeting, there was also a meeting with the former ambassador to Liberia of the United States, who is also currently the U.S. representative to the United Nations, Madam Linda Thomas Greenfield. She also came and had a meeting with the president that was also to re-emphasize the United States support to Liberia, but more so to congratulate His Excellency for his bold step taking in a lot of different initiatives on anti-graft, corruption, and as well as the establishment of the Office of War and Economic Crime Court. That meeting was cordial, and she looked forward to engaging Liberia more. At the evening of the MCC meeting, there was also a dinner held where former President Bush was there and congratulated the African countries, particularly our country, in the different engagement that was held. So from Dallas, Texas, the team, including the president, went to Atlanta, Georgia for a meeting. There are a number of different meetings that were held, but key among those was a visit to the Consortium of Universities for Liberia. In Atlanta, Georgia, there is an organization that's been working even prior to President Boakai becoming president. This organization had been working when he was vice president to lobby to find opportunities for Liberians in the educational sector. So the Consortium of Universities for Liberia, there are a number of different universities, including Morehouse College and others, several colleges within the U.S., to see what opportunities can be leveraged, including Georgia Tech. Can see what other opportunities can be leveraged to Liberians who wanting to go and study abroad. And that, conversation was had and was a very fruitful discussion. So there are lots of plans, and the team should be coming to Liberia anytime soon to, consummate some of those discussions and agreements. And another very important meeting that was held in Atlanta, Georgia, was a meeting between the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and our government, particularly the president, and that meeting was interested, or the interest of the meeting was to develop a sister relationship between Atlanta, Georgia, the airport, the Hartsfield Airport, and the Liberia Airport Authority, particularly the RIA and other airports. So conversations surrounded training opportunities for our airport team, different service network, and even, interestingly, the discussions were held around ensuring that the airline comes back. Delta Airline flies back to, Liberia, and be able to revisit, the issues surrounded, Delta not coming to Liberia. So those were key events. And last but not least, on his US visit, he had several engagements with Liberians in the United States. One of the meetings in Dallas, Texas, was also with the Liberian community, as well as in Atlanta, Georgia, where the Liberians in those part of the world, particularly in the United States, were very excited to meet the president. They talked to him about different issues, and interestingly, there were community engagements. There were back-to-back conversations, question and answer. The president took several questions, and he answered them, and he was very excited to be amongst the Liberians, and they welcomed him, and they also wished him well, but they also did talk about some very serious issues, and that the president took serious note, to be able to follow up with his line agencies, ministers. And finally, the president, when he got back, in fact, while he was in the United States of America, he was invited by his friend, the president of Guinea-Bissau, to visit Guinea-Bissau. And upon his arrival, the next day he was invited, and he went to Guinea-Bissau to meet the president. And there were one on the interest of engaging discussion around the ECOWAS region. As we know, the region is challenging. They discussed a number of things, issues relating to peace and security, but more so establishing that cordial relationship, that bilateral conversation between Liberia and Guinea-Bissau. And that meeting was a day visit. In that meeting, even in Guinea-Bissau, there were also Liberians there who had a meeting with the president. They did talk about some of the issues that they're faced with, and the interest to be able to establish a consulate in Guinea-Bissau, so that Liberians who are there and the challenges that they have, they can have a way to be able to address those issues. And finally, the president has signed the 2024 budget, and he's communicated that to the national legislature. So we'll stop here for now. Should you have any questions, we'll take them, and we'll continue from here. Thank you very much.
So that's it. We'd like to welcome you once again to this Executive Mansion online platform. We're right here in the parlors of the Executive Mansion, where this a regular weekly press briefing is ongoing. The Presidential Press Secretary, Madam Kula Fofana, and Manuel Kepa.
Also related to the president's trip out of the country. I'm a bit concerned about the president's trip to Guinea-Bissau. When the president is traveling, it's usually announced, it's communicated to the Liberian people through the Executive Mansion website. But we did not see anything of such. Up to now, there's nothing on the Executive Mansion website, Facebook page about the president's visit. I would like to know why was that so? Why did the president travel and not communicate with Liberians as to why he traveled and what was the purpose of this meeting? Another thing, Front-Page Africa is reporting that the president boarded a private jet, and that has been a concern because the president, upon his return from the US, also pledged that he won't spend Liberian people money on private jets. So I'd like to get some clarity. Was this jet paid for Liberia, or was it a gift? Just one clarity on that. My next question is, while President Bouaga was out of the country, the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission chairperson told OKFM that out of 500 persons appointed by President Bouaga, only 75 persons have declared their assets. The time has expired. The law provides that in 1 month, your assets should be declared assets and liabilities. What would the president do in this case that his officials he has appointed have violated the Liberia anti-corruption law? And upbeat to that question, I'd like to ask you, Press Secretary, have you also declared assets?
All right, questions?
Again, my name is Mark Thomas, and I take concern about the supplementary payroll. But will you mind giving an update on how many persons have been paid and how many persons remain on the supplementary payroll issue?
Questions will continue. The Presidential Press Secretary, Kula Fofana.
One question.
Is right here. She's the head of this team from the Executive Mansion online platform.
Any more questions?
Take the first batch of questions.
So if there's just one round of questions, that's beautiful. So I will start up with the bottom questions around the supplementary payroll. As you know, we all just arrived back in the country, and I've not had a briefing with the Office of the Deputy Minister of Administration. So to speak specifically to how many persons have been paid or not, but what I can say is that prior to our leaving, there was a substantial number of people who have been paid, and there were some who were still being paid, and there were others who they still couldn't locate them, and there was some misinformation that there were clarifications needed. But as to exactly how many persons, I can't tell you. So the question about whether I've declared my assets, I don't want to be like what the names are going to say, asset, I get nothing, but we're still trying to culminate our assets to know how much we got. But yes, we've done the preliminary works around the assets declaration process. So me, I get nothing. I just started my latest list, but no, that's just the fun of it. But yeah, we'll try to. The fact is, we have declared before. As you know, we contested this one elections. And as part of that process, you have to declare your assets publicly. So mine is only about updating. We've done the preliminary workings on that. On the issue of the 500 persons, I've been informed that this number is way beyond what the actuality is. That 575 persons, that is not true. There are more public officials who have declared their assets. And the information that was given by LSCC was not true. As to the specifics, I can get back to you on this one, but I can tell you for sure that it is not 75 persons. And as to what the president is going to do, of course the president did, as you remember, during one of our press conferences, we did talk about the president's reminder to the public officials. And again, he has consistently reminded them, but he will be taking up some decisions. And there is a planned cabinet meeting or retreat coming up very soon, and there are some actions that the president is expected to take. He also is encouraging all public officials to go and declare their assets, because this is part of what he's sort of for. About the issue of the private jet, and whether or not it is being paid for by Liberia. I will tell you that the president have not paid for any private jet and does not have any interest in paying money for private jets. As you know, Liberia is currently challenged in the transportation sector. And one of the issues that he has said consistently is that his goal is to make sure that the important sectors are taken care of. And his own to procure private jet, that is not the government's priority at the moment. Even though every country, the president say you go to other countries, the presidents will have a presidential plane. The country has a presidential plane. But currently, Liberia does not have one, and our current president is not interested in procuring one at the moment because one, there are no resources for it. Secondly, there are other high-level and key priorities that the president cares about. On the issue, I know the bigger question is not whether the president paid for it or not. I think the lingering question that many pundits have talked about is on the issue of this private jet. It's to say, why the president is going on private jet, but I would say, there's nothing wrong with a country inviting our president and inviting him and sending the presidential plane. And this was specifically in light of the Guinea-Bissau's travel. The president did not pay for the jet. He was invited by the president of Guinea-Bissau. And it's like inviting you and they say, I'll send you your car to come and bring you. And that shouldn't be a problem. There was not a dime spent from the Liberian people money in relations to the issue of private jet. But I think one thing that people get confused, and I like to make this, and I like to really provide some education on it, especially in light of the Code of Conduct. And I would like to read section 1.9 of the Code of Conduct that says public officials and employees of government shall not receive nor encourage the giving of any form of bribe or casual gift in connection with the performance of his or her official duties, whether for himself or herself, or members of his or her family, or any other benefits that will have any influence on his or her professional approach to issues and the discharge of his or her duties. This shall not include gift giving during traditional ceremonies, celebrations, and fees to pay for lobbying. The legislature shall enact laws for those regulations and activities. So back to section 9.4, it says a public official or employee of government may accept gifts other than casual or token gifts from foreign governments, donors, international or multinational organizations, or quasi-governmental organizations closely affiliated or funded by foreign government, but shall publicly declare such gift to his or her superior, who shall decide whether the public official or employee of government may retain the gift or must surrender its commitment. So I'd like to provide clarity on this issue. Firstly is the issue as been said in the code of conduct. Private jets, there's no law against the president going, and there are benefits. For example, traveling in the West African or even on Africa, it's a long way sometimes. For example, going right here, Gambia, sometimes you have to go all the way to Guinea-Bissau. You have to all the way go to Casablanca because there are very few routes to go to those places. So if the government decides or invite your president, and if it's not costing the government any resources, it shouldn't be a problem. And the code of conduct did not say that, you can't fly on private jet or you cannot get gifts, and these are not gifts, and these issues is not something that somebody is interested in anything within Liberia. So we have to get to a point to understand that yes, there will be times that the president will fly on private jet that will not cost the government any resources. And that is where the clarity needs to be made. The government will not pay for private jets according to what the president has said. In fact, even today we had this conversation that the issue of private jets, the government shouldn't come from the government coffers. It's not going to be something that the government is going to, pay for. So, because the comparison is always made between now and before. Before there were issues around the procurement processes, talking about getting private jet or renting it. But this, the president has said his interest is not to even ride private jet, number one. But if he has to, it will not, and it doesn't have to come from the government's coffers. And the other thing about flying, the president's recent visit to the United States, he rode Brussels Airlines. He went with Brussels and came back with Brussels. And that's commercial flights, and it was paid for. So just to clarify this, private jet for Lavalu, and one of the things I've always said to you journalists and media friends is that it is important you set the agenda for the conversation. It's important for us to focus setting the agenda of the important conversations. What were the outcomes of the meetings and how the Liberian people will benefit? Those should be the very important conversation on that. And then talking about the president, why the president did not communicate. Again, as you know, I just come, normally when the president is traveling, if there are pre-planned activities, there's a full schedule, and there's a list, and then I'm supposed to develop the press briefings, and for the entire days, the entire Tuesday and Wednesday, I was flying from the United States, coming through, talking about the scene flying business, and small jet lag, going all over the place before we were able to get here. So it was challenging. I probably didn't read I didn't have access to internet sometimes. So we were unable to follow up with that, conversation. But again, it was a quick visit. It was an urgent trip, and I agree with you that communication needed to be out. But for the most part, it was just an invitation. And again, there will be times that the president, being the president of a country, he will visit places sometimes unannounced. Sometimes he will be needed. There are some high-level security meetings that would need to happen, that he needs to go quickly. But once you receive the information, you all will get them. So let us try to get comfortable with the presidency being able to work in the interest of the Liberian people and provide the information and do the work that the Liberian people voted for our president on. If there are no further questions, I'd like to, you got a question there?
Right.
Then do it quickly now. Then we'll do the last question, so we can call it a day. So thank you all so much.
Yes.
And yes, please say your name and your question.
We're coming to you live.
Yes, I like the energy. Quickly to the issue. Is that planned by His Excellency the President to declare and make his assets public? And two, the President initiated an investigation at the Liberia Telecommunications Authority. How far is that investigation? How soon do we expect that investigation to conclude? My name is Sompon, and I report for Prime FM. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sompon. And say hi to the Prime FM team, Kelvin, and the rest of the guys. Yes, the president set up a team to investigate, and it was not just the LTA. There are a number of investigations currently ongoing. And as you know, issues of graft and corruptions and allegations here and there, they take some time. And that's why we say in Liberia, hurry, boss strasser. So we don't want to, the president is giving opportunity to the team that was set up to do the investigation and be able to provide him outcome of, what they've seen. And then upon that, he will take further actions. So yes, those investigations are still ongoing, and once they are concluded and he receives a briefing, you all will receive it from us here. On your other question around
with accountability and transparency, is the President willing to...
Yes, his publication of the asset. The president and I have had this conversation many times. He's going to do it. There in the last couple of weeks, there are a combination of a lot of different things happening. So he will do that. He will. He very soon, as soon as possible. As soon as possible. As soon as possible, the chief, he's gonna listen, and I've told him that this will happen, and of course he will do that. Okay. So again, thank you all. I'm always very happy to take your questions. To those listening in the diaspora, thank you for following up and for following, the live activities. Things the president also wants me to convey to all of you his appreciation for your presence, your time, your energy you exerted during his visit in the United States, particularly in Dallas, Texas, to all the Liberians there, to the president of the Liberian community there, as well as in Atlanta, Georgia, and other places. He really wants me to express his gratitude to all of you and continue to work hard and keep advocating for Liberia. His promise, his charge is to remain committed to the Liberian cause, something that he was voted upon. Thank you very much, and have a good evening or good afternoon.
All right,
Thank you.
that does it from the platform there. The presidential press secretary right here live on the grounds of the executive mansion.
It's Friday for everybody.
Members of the media, cross-cutting media,
we're not there.
right here, coming to you live from the parlor of the executive mansion, right here, live on the executive mansion online platform. For on behalf of the entire team, Madam Kula,
The person on the ground, I said, he was there.
The lady,
We good?
Lovette Fofana,
All right, thank you all. Where is the
Blackie, and the rest of them, the entire team, saw all of us. My name is Emmanuel Kipa. Thanks a million for viewing. Thanks for your comments, and keep your comments coming. Present day. Bye-bye.